Okay.
You're all set.
Thank you. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing
It's
well,
Tuesday.
thank you.
Excellent. Hey, MJ, can you lead the conversation? I don't have the stuff in front of me. Do you mind just leading the conversation?
Yeah, I would never problem with that at all. I just got to remember which meeting it was that we had the documentation given to us, because I do have my folder for the finance committee stuff, but it was a few weeks ago, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it was
correct.
two. I think it was 2 or 3 meetings ago. I can't remember if there was one during April vacation that I
Yeah,
missed.
that's what I was thinking of. I want to say it was probably end of March, early April.
Agreed.
All right, so let me see if I can find. I don't want to say it's a 4:10 meeting, so let me just cue this up here.
That sounds right.
That is that budget order. Where to respond? That's. I want to say it might be the meeting previously to that. Hold on. Here. Free cash policy. So, that's the school's budget policy. That's free. That's what we're looking for. I apologize. I probably should have been a little more prepared, but I thought we might have the paperwork given to us in the meeting reminder, but bear with me.
No worries, take your time.
After all, we're on the clock here anyways, so. Let's see. Let's see if it's this one. Capital expenditure policy, maybe that's the one. Here it is. I believe it is ordinance DFY 23-009 capital expenditure policy that we're here to discuss. I believe this is the policy proposal that was how the school district and the town would communicate between each other with regards to any types of expenditures that relate to capital improvements, precipitated by the situation that occurred last year. I want to say that revolved around the repairs of the track, and they found that they had the money elsewhere, so they instead gave us, if I remember correctly, the money back to the town.
That's
or
correct.
that they used their own money from a different bucket of funds to then take care of that particular thing. So because we do have that there, and I know if folks are watching, we probably should read it into the record, so I will read it out. Whereas the town charter section 6.5 states, quote, the town council shall provide by ordinance the procedures for administration and fiduciary oversight of the budget, end quote. Whereas Bridgewater Rainham Regional School District is an independent body from the town of Bridgewater, whereas the town council approves capital expenditure requests from the Bridgewater Rainham School District for capital items. Therefore, the capital expenditure payment policy for the town of Bridgewater with respect to Bridgewater Rainham School District for any capital expenditure items shall be: 1, no payment shall be made from the town of Bridgewater to the Bridgewater Rainham School District without an executed purchase order, contract, or receipt for reimbursement. 2, payment should be made in accordance with a percent complete method when executing a long-term project. 3, payments made from the town of Bridgewater to Bridgewater Rainham District must be used for the specific purpose of the requested funds. With the explanation given to us on the paperwork, this policy will ensure that the requested funding from Bridgewater Rainham and the payments approved by the town council and made by the town of Bridgewater are tightly coupled so that no audit gaps or uncertainty of how the funds are used will exist. And at that time, when it was remitted to us for listening and hearing about it, it was not for action, it was basically first reading. So as a result of this proposal, our conversation was such in our meeting, that we thought it was a good idea as a policy in and of itself, but we felt it could be tweaked a little bit further.
Yep.
So as a result, all three of us, Mr. Knoll, Mr. Langone, and myself, offered our time to be members of a volunteer subcommittee on the finance committee to whittle things out and see if we can try to clean up the language so that it's a little bit more palatable for the town council to approve or disapprove or make more amendments to thereof.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, MJ.
Yeah.
Hey, MJ, I do have one question that kind of starts this whole conversation off
Mhm.
that I thought about after the meeting, and I wasn't sure, but at one point I was involved with Mr. Fitzgibbons, who's now on the school committee,
Mhm.
and Mr. Dutton, and redoing the you know, the school charter, right? And my question that when we proposed this, I'm just thinking out loud, like, I don't remember where that ended, and I don't recall if in the school charter, once we approve funds, whether or not we pass this or not, right? Like I thought in my head that the school committee, once we approve funds, once we approve a budget, could actually use the money on whatever they wanted. Like, as much as like we're gonna talk through this,
Mhm.
I just wonder if there isn't like a complete disconnect on the other side of the house when it
Yeah.
comes to this, because I was under the impression that once we voted it, I'm just gonna use a number. Once we voted $1 million and it was for the track, they could turn around and use it for books or Chromebooks or equipment in the school. Like they had no responsibility to use it for what it was earmarked.
Right,
And
and that was,
that could have changed. I don't know, but I just want to put that out there as a question
Mhm.
that we have. It shouldn't derail this conversation. I think we should go about it the right way and put
Mhm.
together our recommendations.
Right.
But I would like to get clarification on that when we do meet with Michael and the town council and actually come up with something. Because
Yeah.
if it's a moot point, then we're all wasting our time, right?
Right. No, I totally get you, Eric. And that was sort of the impetus for this particular subcommittee to exist, was I guess we were trying to answer that question, knowing that previously when we voted on all of this was necessitated by an issue where one group had information before the town did, then the town got the information, but they didn't get it in time to give it to the town council. So the council still voted on the funds. The funds were then still sent to the school district. The school district then took the funds. And we ended up in a situation where, you know, from an auditing standpoint, it would be, well, if they voted on this, then this particular cache of money is supposed to be given to the district to perform that particular purpose. And I guess it's a way of keeping things transparent as it relates to audits. And I think
Yep.
that's the question we're seeking to answer. I know when this was first proposed a few months ago, I was a little irked by it because honestly, the town is honest when it comes to its votes. I mean, there's really no way of getting around it. When I say we, I mean the royal we, as the town itself takes that vote and approves those funds, we are sending them to the entity that is being assigned those funds in the expectation that they will fulfill the purpose that we voted on. Again, royal we, not me, because you know I don't run the town, but in general, the community voted on something to take and have done, and we expect, you know, whether it was a vendor or the school district to go follow through and take care of it. And when I saw this proposal, it alarmed me in that I thought this was something that was already taking place, but that we're basically being forced to conform to something that we already do. But this is, I guess, more or less memorializing that yes, we do it. Now the school district has to be expected to do it, which again, it's one of those things that it's a workable policy. Ray, you can back me up on this one. It's a workable policy. It's a great idea. But the problem is at the end of the day, I feel like we're just basically, our hands are tied anyway legally by law. We're just putting another piece of string or twine, on our thumb or pointer finger to say, hey, we're going to still do this, and then take care of it. It's like just a constant reminder of it. So it's like it feels more like it's a policy meant for the school district more than us. But from an auditing standpoint, it seems like a responsible policy for both the town and the school district to have it. But again, it still concerns me, like when I said it before, what's to stop the district from not following through on it? We're at the same situation. We could vote $1 million for textbooks, and then they go and buy, Chromebooks serve as textbooks, so technically it's a textbook. And it's one of those things that it can be cracked open like that. And I think what we're supposed to do is we're trying to tighten that up so that it holds both sides accountable, but also, I guess, keeps us saying, yeah, we're definitely honoring that agreement. So now it's on you guys to take care of it.
Yep. I think we're completely aligned, MJ. That makes sense, right? Because if you think about it, over half of our budget,
Yeah,
literally half the money that Bridgewater spends every year is on the school system. I actually think it's more than half now.
it's probably closer to 58-42, I would say, in all honesty. If you want to round it up, well, I guess we could say 60-40. I mean, that's in the intent of any school district is to be 50-50, but proportionally, we are the larger town. Rainham has more of the infrastructure, but at the end of the day, financially, it's a 60-40 split because Bridgewater is the larger town, and we both send a different amount of students both to the regional high school and then to the regionalized other school buildings around. It's just simple math at that point. And we already are, just by the power of the purse, we're already bound to tell them, yes, we're gonna budget this because there's really no choice. I mean, we're in a regional agreement where you're a Chapter 57 entity. We're governed by Chapter 1 through, can't remember what numbers of the general laws, but in overall speaking, that's where our duty lies. We have to fund the district, otherwise the district doesn't operate. Rainham has that same responsibility. So the feeling for me is why, I get we need a policy. I don't understand why we're being the ones forced to have to come up with it instead of it being a joint effort between both Bridgewater and Rainham. It could be something that Rainham already has on their books. We don't really talk that much to the folks in Rainham. Probably something that could be for a later conversation with maybe our colleagues on the other side of the town border. But at the end of the day, the policy is something that the council wants to, obviously, I mean, they wouldn't propose it if they didn't want to see it go into effect. So I guess we're bound by the potential of making it something that's agreeable to everybody, but ultimately it's something the school district really should be the ones taking care of. But I guess we're setting the example first.
Great points and great question, Eric and MJ. Here's my thoughts behind it, right? And I've been thinking about this since we've had our meeting a few meetings back. Why just the school district alone? Other entities in town request capital to do other projects, whether it be the fire department or the police department or the town. There are other entities that are that request funds, right? And for consistency purposes and for transparency purposes, why isn't this policy being written in such a way where it encompasses across the board any entity that asks the town for money to do certain projects, right? This policy would be perfectly aligned, providing that the language is carved out the right way, will be perfectly aligned to make sure that checks and balances are in place. right? And, in the spirit of auditing, that's what makes sense. And also in the spirit of like moral operation, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is that, any entity that requests funds for a specific item or specific project, and then those funds are used for something totally different. Where that can be very hairy is that, that leaves the town open for corruption, if you think about it, right? Because I can easily say, hey, I want funds to build a track, but then I'm using those funds, to pay my staff, right?
And that makes
and no track has ever been built.
And that makes total sense, Rick, because ultimately the town does have a capital expenditure plan, as it were. We have, if I remember correctly, just with my experience in town, having worked for a few years, Mr. Sulamonte and Mr. Dutton worked on what would be considered a 5-year capital plan, which involved all the departments and their specific needs out from, at that time, I want to say it was FY19 through FY24. It's probably changed in the last few years, obviously to keep track with anything that's been fulfilled in the past. But the one thing that I always thought is that it's a great idea to have these types of capital plans, but where is your policy behind it? It almost seems amorphous in that there's nothing concretely holding it down. And that was the thing that bothered me about this back in March, was that it's only one particular agency, as it were, of the town, even though they're an independent entity, but it should be something across the board. Why single out this one group when we do a capital expenditure plan for everything from, roadways division to park and recreation? It's simple that it should be an all-encompassing, not necessarily a catch-all. And I would hate to see a carve out on something, just be like, oh, well, this department can do, all these other departments are bound by this policy, except for this one. They can do this, and this with their funds, regardless of what we say they should do. There really should be a uniform policy behind that capital plan. This seems like a template that we could adopt to make it that bar district thing, which again, I feel like this is answering a problem that's on that side of the situation, not us. But it definitely begs the question, should we have an ordinance in place that allows us to have a capital expenditure policy for all departments? It's a greater conversation, Rig, and I definitely would love to have that conversation. I see this as being the starting point for that. We can have the conversation about what works for us between Bridgewater and Bridgewater Rainham. I just don't see why we have to single out one entity over all the other departments and staffers and all the other obligations the town has. It seems like this was tailor-made for a situation where I'm not really sure what kind of wording I can use to describe it without sounding like, a conspiracy theorist, but I don't want to say something without saying something.
No,
Right.
I think to your point, MJ, it was probably exception based and developed to support that exception, right? And as we're all talking, I'm quickly coming to a conclusion that, one, we don't have to do this immediately, right? There's no clock on it. Not that we want to take 6 months to do it, but there is nothing that says we can't take a couple months and go through it. And I think where I'm starting to go through this conversation is to almost ask Tony for any capital policies, to your point, not just procedures, but policies that have been adopted. Because I know I've been on the FinCom a long time, and I think there were some developed, but I don't remember them off the top of my head anymore. It's been years since some of these documents have been circulated. It probably wouldn't hurt us to get from Tony or Michael the most recent capital policies and plans that we've published as a town, and the school charter and how they spell out capital, so that we can research those two documents, read through them, and then kind of say, hey, what conflicts with this stuff, and come up with, something that jives with those existing documents, because I do think they'd be super helpful in helping us make some educated recommendations, if you will.
And it would be the prudent course of action, just because I know when I used to be our committees as secretary back in the day, I know there was a lot of stuff we got as a group, and y'all had to go through and read a lot of it, and I know a good chunk of that was in its almost like primordial stage, because it was like 13, 14, 15 there, and it was definitely the early days of that. So it's certainly, if Miss Ward is listening in, I would ask that she reach out to Mr. Dutton and Mr. Sulamonte to ask for those particular documents that you referenced, just so we can start taking a look at this, because this actually begs a bigger question that has an answer at the end of it. It's something that's going to benefit everybody, not just the district, but all departments. And I think that's probably our more prudent course of action at this stage.
Right. I totally agree with in the direction where this conversation is going, because we first need to know what's on the books first, and then certainly depending on what's on the books, this will lead the direction on terms of either strengthening what's currently on the books or creating something so that it's a cross entity. I do want to go on record and say that, and perhaps I think you might have already said it, MJ, but just in case, I'm glad that the school department, and when they came, a representative for the school department came and said, hey, we did do our due diligence, and we did follow up, and we did send information to the town. So they didn't arbitrarily make decisions. So I just want that to go on record, to be clear, and to state to state on record that, that they didn't arbitrarily use funds without following through and communicating with the town.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like, it was a minor, it was, in the grand scheme of things, the issue that arose to give genesis to this was a minor issue, in that they did all the part that they were supposed to do. There was no like sleight of hand or, backroom deal, as, some of the public would make an assertion or an accusation of. We already know, it's almost like putting the cart before the horse analogy. We already had the cart there. We purchased the cart, we put it together, but we didn't have the horse before. Right. But it's one of those things that we got what we had before, but we didn't have it when they finally took the vote. When they took the vote on the actual stuff, they were still operating under the premise that, the school district was still on the same page, but then the school district already had a different page, needed to give it to the town, but the town didn't correctly give it to us at that point. Barring that, it was more like a crossing of paper that caused not an issue, not a problem, but what could be perceived as a miscommunication. This is an attempt to walk that back, I guess. And yeah, you're right, Reagan. Have it on the record that's the best thing we can do, because the school district did what they were supposed to do. They followed through on their part, and we have to have that expectation as one of two towns that sends funds to them on a yearly basis. We have to have that expectation that they will, stay honest. But barring that, that's why when I read the policy the first time and heard this on first blush, I'm like, well, doesn't the school district already have something like this on the books? So that definitely leads us to, well, we need to see what their charter does say. If it doesn't say the outlining that we have here in this proposed ordinance, then yeah, their charter needs to be adjusted for it and fixed. Just because this one instance they came in and they said, we did everything was done right, just like it has in all the other things in the past. It's always that one situation that occurs that it might not necessarily happen. Like next time, it could be that the town had the paperwork before the school district did, and we pivoted and made the change before the school district had time to even take a look at it and say, well, why'd you go and reverse that, or why'd you go forward with that? We didn't actually need that. But in this instance, it was they said, no, we don't need this. We don't need to have it because we already have these funds, and then we just went ahead and voted on it. So it's a situation where we could have the reverse of what happened actually happen. So
Yeah.
you're
Yep.
right.
And by the way, I think, we get into dangerous water when we speculate, but like my head goes to, if I had to guess why we're seeing it, I think it's because somebody looked at it after the fact and said, yes, they did everything right, but maybe there could have been risk, and they're trying to solve for a could have more than than actual risk.
Yep.
In which case, understanding those documents we talked about is really important, because if we read it and we go, hey guys, it's clear cut in the school, I'm just using this as an example. It's clear cut in the school charter that they can't spend it everywhere unless it's voted on for a specific purpose. Then we're kind of spinning our wheels, right? Like, so even more reason that, this conversation is of value in talking about how we're thinking about things. So yeah, no, this is great. So that's where I am. I think there's a couple documents I would really like to get my hands on and read and educate myself on, so that if we are going to draft a policy in the end, where we're doing it with a full understanding of what exists today. Whereas, I don't know about both of you, but I don't have that firm grasp on that today. I could be educated more, and I feel like I would like to be educated more.
No, I would be in agreement with you. I think all three of us saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Eric.
Yep,
I too agree.
Fantastic. So MJ, and I apologize because I literally just walked in my house, so I'm no longer driving, which is great.
I just walked in as well.
Am I the only one sitting in a chair right now?
Yeah. Well, 6:00 is tough. I would ask in the future that we probably push it to 6:30. I'm usually home by 6:30, but 6 it's hit or miss for me.
Yeah.
But we have 2 or 3 things we'd like to get from Tony and Michael, and I'm more than happy to send that request. But MJ, I'll ask to get with you and just if it's 2 of us as opposed to 3 of us, I just want to make sure I have the right information to send to them.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, just shoot me a text or an email real quick, and I'll put that email together in the morning and ask for some help there, because I know anytime we ask for information, they're super responsive to it, and getting us what we asked for, and trying to be transparent. So I have no doubt that they'll share it immediately once we ask.
Yep. Once we adjourn, I'll send that to you as quick like a penny.
I appreciate the help. Thank you.
No problem. So the other thing is and since I'm hearing, scheduling, this is one thing that we probably should set out. And I know we're probably bouncing all over the place with our so it sounds like we've already set up our objectives and goals at this point. Do we want to settle on 6:30 as a time slot on a Tuesday?
That works for me.
Yeah, I can.
Greg?
I think 7 would because my traffic is hit or miss coming from Waltham. So,
yeah, you've definitely got more of an issue with 128 and 24 South. So I want to be considered. I personally want to be considerate of everybody. I mean, I only work up in Avon, so I leave at 4:30. I get back here by about 5. it does take a while for my laptop to get online because, well, this thing is about 7 years old. But
Right.
I'm cool with 7 p.m. The
Se-
latest
sev-
7:30.
Seven's even better. So
Yeah.
no issue there. I was saying 6:30 because I was asking to push it. So 7's even better.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I can make 7 happen.
Okay. Fantastic.
Cool. So
Awesome, you guys.
All right.
Anything else? Anything else we want to maybe spitball and think about right now, or are we good with what we got right now? And I have my directions that I'll send for you in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I think we're good for what we have right now.
Right.
You know, it's going to be this conversation will be contingent upon what we get and what's in what we get.
Yep.
Agreed.
Excellent.
Yep.
All right then.
Perfect.
So the other thing is chairing the meetings. Who would like to be the one to chair the meetings?
I don't care. I'm happy to do it. But if one of you would like to, I am more than happy to not. So,
I'll offer being up the chair of the subcommittee for
Yeah.
as long as you guys want me to be.
yeah, no, that's
That
great.
works for me.
Appreciate it.
All righty then.
Thank you.
I will we'll get to it, gentlemen. So that being said, we want to adjourn for the evening. Do we just need
Yep.
to give control back over to Miss Ward to close it all off?
Yep, motion to adjourn.
Second. All
I
right.
agree.
Excellent. We're adjourned then. So we'll figure out when we're going to meet again next.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys.
Sounds
No
great.
problem.
All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Talk to you soon.
Yep,
Bye.
bye.
Ashley Poe? Ashley, honey? Hey, kiddo. I'm gonna order. Eddie's. Okay, do we eat?
Okay. Oh, I came in second for the superlative.
Oh,
Oliver didn't win either, though.
who won?
It was I don't even know who she is. It was the other girl.
Who is she?
I don't know.
Oh, I was hoping you were gonna win.
Same. Nolan won most likely to be on Broadway though.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, he came in second, but Brett had won too. So it went to the runner up. But he took a big on it. So
Good. All right. All right. What do you want? You want pizza fries?
yes, please.
So Ashley, your,
Huh?
what's your thing? Saturday? You going to a show?
Yeah,
Saturday night?
he's gonna come over here and then you're one, we're gonna do that stuff and bring him to the show.
That's cool. I mean, not for me, because I'll miss you, but.
I know, but you want me to hang out with my friends.
Yeah, no.
Let's have Norton Pine.
No, I think it's cool.
I thought so.
But I will be sad.
I'm happy. He's happy. Love you.
Fix the lights.